Welcome everyone to the Fantasy Phoenix podcast, here to give you tips for NBL SuperCoach. Round 2 is in the books and we saw some close finishes, quite a few underwhelming performances and some huge games from our SuperCoach players. Here's how I went for the week, scoring 352 points, moved up a few thousand spots in the rankings, but unfortunately another lackluster captain performance saw us having another subpar week. Let's start there with the big issues in the team being at the guard spot. Captain Derek Walton Jr. having 2 of his worst performances back-to-back, and even Shaylee couldn't match his single round 1 score with a double in round 2. The rest of the team wasn't too bad though. Days had a slight ankle injury in the first game, so his ceiling was capped a little bit, but he still had a very solid 62. Jack White started very slowly, but finished incredibly strong with all 71 of his points coming in 5.5 quarters of action. Some foul trouble for Cam Oliver saw him not quite hit the heights, but still a very acceptable score. Some other players of note were Tyrell Harrison doing what he should have done last week, hitting 42 points in that game against the Hawks. Matt Hurt killed it for the few percent of people that went with the Sem sharpshooting big. Will Magnay put up a monster ceiling score, as did Jalen Adams, who showed why he loves playing against the Wildcats with another 50-plus score against them. He did break his streak, so he had 15 consecutive games of scoring 30 or more points against both the Wildcats and the Hawks, which came tumbling down with a 20s score on Sunday. But still a very solid 75-point score for the round. I was at the Hawks practice this morning. Lockie Olbrich wasn't involved, but have been told that everything is all good and they've got a clean bill of health heading into their round 3 clash against Adelaide on Saturday afternoon. In some other injury news, the Cairns Taipans are hopeful that Taron Armstrong will be back at some point this weekend. If so, we can get a bit of a look at him and see how he gets back into the flow of things as a potential target next week. Mick Randall reporting that Ben Henschel is back training and good to go for Friday night's game. Hopefully he can pick up right where he left off for owners. If you don't have Henschel, will you be moving for the cash cow? Round 3 is the biggest so far, with 5 teams, Melbourne, Perth, Tasmania, Adelaide and Cairns all on the double this week, but only the 36ers and Taipans have doubles next week as well. There's some juicy cash cows and some guys that can put up monster scores we will all be wanting in our teams. With that in mind, let's take a look at some potential trade options in our buy, sell, keep and avoid segment. Buy are players that I think are good options to trade in if you don't already have them. Sell players I think are options to trade out if you do own them. Keep are players that are being traded out by others, but I think you should consider keeping. And avoid are players that are being traded in by others, but I think you should consider avoiding. Here's how we went last week. Our buy, Darius Days, scored 62 points and went up $32,000 in value. Our sell, Bryce Cotton, had a score of 28 points. He had no price change, obviously only playing the 2 games, but he has got his break-even set at 90, so buyer beware. Our keep, Jack White, was the 4th highest scorer for the round, scoring 71, and he went up 29k in the process. And our avoid, Lat Mayen, only scored 17 points, but only playing the 2 games so far, has not had a price change yet. This week's options. Our buy for this week, Montrezl Harrell. Plenty of coaches have already jumped on the former NBA 6th Man of the Year, and I think you should be joining them. We've got to remember he's still only 2 games back from that serious knee injury and only looks to be ramping up in his pursuit to get back to the NBA. He's putting up great numbers across the stat sheet, his energy's high, and it looks like he's here for a good time, not a long time. So make sure to be a part of it while you can. Our sell, Derek Walton Jr. I could do a whole episode on Derek Walton Jr., how things have gone for him so far, but the things we need to look at is he's going to be losing money. The Phoenix have 3 singles in a row. There are lots of good guard options that we can move him onto, and worst of all, his team just lets him down. He had a bad game, yes, and everyone misses shots, but I don't think I've seen a guy miss out on more assists from teammates missing wide open and close looks than Derek Walton Jr. It's time for us to cut our losses and move on. Keep Cam Oliver. This one is definitely team dependent, but if you can bring in multiple double game week guys this week without moving on Oliver, I would be doing that. I'm looking to be doing that myself. He's looking good, has 3 doubles in the next 5, and rotates perfectly with Will Magnay over the next few weeks. He's also up against Brisbane this week and could put up a big one even on just a single. Avoid Matthew Dellavedova. He's had a great start to the year, but the impending birth of his next child could still throw a spanner in the works for Delhi. I don't think you need to trade him unless your team is set perfectly, and he may very well just play both games like he did last week with no issue. I just think that if you don't own him, there are more value guard options with better schedules at a better price without that impending risk. With the 5 teams on the double, we have quite a few good options for captaincy. The top 4 I'd be looking at are Will Magnay. Small flag is he has only gone up against United so far this year, and their bigs aren't the defensive issue that they were for teams last season, but he has shown us how great of a SuperCoach scorer he can be. Always a double-double threat, and we know he'll be blocking shots. Cairns and Perth offer a couple of juicy matchups for the big boomer this weekend. If you're going to be bringing in the JJ's big man, you can definitely consider putting the C on him. Next up, I've had him here for the first 2 rounds, so let's just make it 3 for 3. Jack White. If you looked at the stat sheet halfway through the third quarter in their first game, you would see nothing but donuts for Jack White. He then powered home for 23 points in about 8 minutes of action, showing us his great scoring ability. He then backed that up with a 48 haul against the JJs. He has a big ceiling, and I'm backing him to be up towards the top of the SuperCoach scorers again this week. Next, Montrezl Harrell. He's one of the biggest talents that we've had in the NBL, and he's already showing us why. He's electric on both ends of the court, is showing extreme passion, and we can hopefully pencil in some double-double action this week. Adelaide have their home opener against Southeast Melbourne, and I can't see him not feasting in that one. And finally, Bryce Cotton. Perth can't be on a double and Bryce not be part of your captain considerations. He was held to 28 against the Kings, but he's one of the all-time greats for a reason. If you held him for that single last week, captaining him on the double this week was one of the main reasons why. Kendrick Davis is also a great option if you have him. I think he just misses out on the top 4 for me. I would avoid all of the Taipans this week until we see them all play together with Taron Armstrong back, but there could be some sneaky pot options there if you really want to go against the grain. For my team this week, I'm in a similar position to a lot of coaches, including Boz, who mentioned on the SuperCoach Hub podcast that he is looking to potentially boost this week, and it's something that I've strongly considered myself. I'm a little bit further back than I would like to be at this point in the season, and perhaps that aggressive move could help me tick back towards the upper end of the rankings. What I know for sure is that Derek Walton Jr. is going to go, as is Darius Days. The most likely scenario that I have is bring in Montrezl Harrell for Days, Kendrick Davis for Derek Walton Jr. Doing this leaves plenty of cash in the kitty for next week, where we can hopefully move on a Shea Ely and perhaps a Lockie Olbrich as well. But then one of the issues that I will face is we've already lost some value in a couple of players, and we don't want to keep getting caught behind that. So it looks like Shea Ely's going to lose some more money, as is Angus Glover. So the other consideration is using the boost and trading Glover to Ben Henschel, who will get that nice price rise, and we get the extra double this week. There's even a world where if I do that, I could play him on court instead of Shea Ely. I'm not 100% decided on if that's the right move or not, but I'll have to make that call, unfortunately, before the first game, as Sem feature in that. So Thursday afternoon could be a bit of an interesting one. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Hopefully this has helped you with your teams leading into round 2. If it has, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Last week, we smashed past 50 subscribers, and now we're looking towards that 100 mark. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them down below in the comments section, or you can also hit me up on Twitter, X, @FantasyPhoenix_. Good luck for round 3, and don't get too discouraged if things haven't gone your way. Just remember to trust your gut, have fun, and we'll see you in the next one.